The day I stood on that glittering stage in New York City accepting the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, my estranged family sat right there in the front row of guest seats. Their eyes locked on me like they hadn't spent the last 3 years pretending I didn't exist. It hit me like a punch to the gut. After they had cut me off completely for moving in with Naomi, my girlfriend, here they were, dressed in their Sunday best, acting as if the betrayal and silence had never happened. My hands shook as I gripped the heavy crystal trophy, the spotlight burning hotter than any boardroom presentation I'd survived. I forced a smile for the cameras, but inside, every memory of slammed doors and deleted texts clawed its way back up my throat. 3 years earlier, in our tiny apartment in Seattle, Naomi had held my hand while I dialed my parents in Texas. "Mom, Dad, I need you to hear this from me," I'd said, voice steady even though my heart hammered. "I'm in love with Naomi. We're moving in together next month." The line went dead for 10 full seconds before my father's voice cracked through like ice. "Cassidy, this is not who we raised you to be. You come home right now and we forget this nonsense." Mom's sobs followed, the kind that made me feel like I'd murdered someone. By the time I hung up, Naomi was already packing her sketchbooks into boxes, her dark eyes calm but her jaw set in that quiet way she had when the world tried to break us. "They'll come around," she whispered, but we both knew the truth. They didn't. Christmas cards stopped. My brother's texts turned cold. The family group chat vanished overnight. I was 25, building Eco-Innovate from my laptop at the kitchen table, and suddenly I was an orphan by choice, except it wasn't my choice at all. The applause in the auditorium snapped me back. I scanned the faces below. There was Dad in his navy blazer, Mom clutching her purse like it was a shield, and my brother Ryan beside them nodding stiffly. Naomi stood off to the side near the press pit, her long black hair catching the lights, that subtle smile she saved just for me. She had driven cross-country with me for this night, leaving her gallery opening behind because she knew what this award meant. 3 years of ramen nights, investor rejections that smelled like homophobia wrapped in cultural fit concerns, and late arguments where I cried about missing my mom's cooking while Naomi stroked my hair and reminded me we were building something real. Now the trophy felt heavier than the weight of every lonely holiday. I stepped to the microphone, throat tight. "Thank you. This isn't just for me. It's for every founder who was told their life didn't fit the mold." My eyes flicked to my family again. Dad's lips pressed into a thin line. Mom dabbed at her eyes. They weren't clapping. Not really. They were calculating. After the ceremony, the organizers herded us to the VIP lounge. I clutched Naomi's hand like a lifeline as we approached the table where my family waited. "Cassidy," Mom started, voice trembling but warm for the first time in years. "We're so proud of what you've done." The words should have healed something. Instead they scraped raw. Naomi squeezed my fingers once, silently telling me she had my back no matter what came next. But I could already feel the old fracture lines reopening, the same ones that started the day I chose love over their approval. The night stretched ahead, full of questions none of us had answers for yet, and I wondered how long I could keep smiling before everything cracked open again. The reception lights blurred into streaks as I forced myself to laugh at the small talk swirling around us. Investors clapped me on the back, praising the eco-friendly packaging app that had just landed me on Forbes' watch list. But all I saw was Dad's rigid posture across the table, the way he kept glancing at Naomi like she was a puzzle he refused to solve. "We saw the article in the Dallas Morning News," he said finally, cutting through the chatter. "Youngest woman to hit 8 figures in sustainable tech. Impressive." His tone carried the same edge it had the day he told me to leave the house if I wouldn't fix myself. Naomi sat beside me, her fingers tracing small circles on my knee under the tablecloth, a silent anchor. She had always been the calm one, sketching city skylines while I paced our apartment ranting about venture capitalists who asked if my lifestyle would scare off conservative clients. Back then, right after the call with my parents, we had driven straight to Seattle with everything we owned crammed into my old Honda. Naomi's parents in Portland had been kinder, distant but polite, but they still sent cards with careful wording that avoided the word girlfriend. Mine sent nothing. The first 6 months were brutal. I coded 18-hour days while Naomi waitressed at a coffee shop to cover rent. Investors ghosted after Zoom calls where my pronouns slipped or Naomi's voice echoed in the background. One particularly vicious pitch meeting ended with a suit from Austin saying, "We love the product, Cassidy, but our board prefers founders with traditional family values." I cried in the parking lot afterward. Naomi pulled me into her arms and said, "Then we'll build it without them. You and me against the world." That night we sat on the floor eating cheap Thai takeout. And I realized the price of my choice wasn't just lost holidays, it was every future version of myself that didn't include her. Ryan leaned forward now, breaking my spiral. "Sis, the company's valuation is insane. Dad's been showing the article to his golf buddies." Mom nodded, eyes shiny. "We never stopped loving you, Cassidy. We just needed time." The lie tasted like ash. They had needed 3 years of radio silence while I clawed my way through prejudice that followed me into every networking event. Clients whispered. Employees hesitated when they learned about Naomi during team happy hours. I had turned down partnerships that smelled like conditional acceptance, choosing instead to pour every spare dollar into mentorship programs for queer founders. Naomi had sacrificed her dream gallery show in San Francisco to stay in Seattle and help me build the team. "You're my home now," she told me once after a brutal board meeting where a director asked if my personal life was a liability. I had chosen her every single day, and the cost was a family-shaped hole that still ached when the lights went out. The conversation turned polite after that. Small talk about Ryan's new job, Mom's garden club. But underneath, the tension coiled tighter. I could feel Dad watching Naomi's hand on mine, measuring how much he was willing to swallow for the sake of the daughter on stage. Naomi excused herself to the restroom, giving me a soft kiss on the cheek that felt like armor. Alone with them for the first time in years, the words tumbled out before I could stop them. "Why now? Why show up after everything you said?" Mom's face crumpled. "Because we saw how far you've come, and we miss our daughter." Dad stayed silent, but his eyes said he was still deciding whether I was worth claiming. The lounge music swelled around us, but inside I was already bracing for the next blow. Naomi returned, slipping her arm through mine, and I knew whatever came next would force me to choose again. This time in front of the people who had taught me what family was supposed to mean. By the time the after-party wound down, the city lights outside the venue glittered like accusations. We piled into the hotel elevator, Naomi, me, and my family awkwardly squeezed together like strangers on a subway. Mom chattered about the flight from Dallas. Ryan cracked a joke about New York traffic, but Dad's silence pressed against my ribs like a weight. In our suite later, Naomi kicked off her heels and curled beside me on the bed while I stared at the ceiling. "They want something," she murmured, tracing the award plaque I'd set on the nightstand. "No one flies across the country after 3 years of nothing unless there's a price." She was right. I had spent the last year dodging similar traps at work. Potential investors who hinted that a stable home life would help close deals, code for a husband and 2.4 kids. I had walked away from 2 seven-figure offers because I refused to hide Naomi's photo on my desk or let her attend company galas as just a friend. The flashbacks hit hardest at night. I remembered the exact afternoon my mother had shown up unannounced at our Seattle apartment 6 months after the cutoff. She had stood in the doorway clutching a casserole dish like a peace offering, eyes darting past me to Naomi washing dishes in the kitchen. "I just wanted to see if you're eating," Mom had said. But when Naomi turned and smiled, polite and genuine, Mom's face had shuddered. "This isn't permanent, Cassidy. You'll outgrow it." The door closed behind her before I could answer, and that casserole sat untouched in the fridge until it spoiled. Naomi never complained. Instead, she started a ritual. Every Sunday she baked my mom's famous banana bread recipe from memory, sliding the pan across the table with a quiet, "For the parts you still miss." Those small acts kept me from drowning in the guilt that whispered I had traded blood for love. Morning came too soon. Dad knocked on our door at 7, holding coffee from the lobby. "Walk with me, kiddo." We left Naomi sleeping and strolled the hotel garden. He didn't waste time. "Your mother and I have been talking. The company's doing well. We want to invest, family money, no strings." The offer landed like a trap. I knew the strings. They had always been there, tied to the version of me who dated boys and went to church on Sundays. "Dad, I built this without you. Naomi helped me code the first prototype." His jaw tightened. She's a nice girl, but this lifestyle, it's not sustainable, Cassidy. Think about your future. Grandkids. Legacy. The word lifestyle stung worse than any investor rejection. I walked away before I said something unforgivable, heart pounding with the same rage that had fueled 3 years of all-nighters and silent tears in airport bathrooms. Back in the room, Naomi was awake, sketching on the balcony. He offered money? She asked without looking up. I nodded, sinking beside her. Her pencil paused. Whatever you decide, I love you. But don't let them rewrite our story. That afternoon we met my family for brunch. Mom hugged me too tight. Ryan showed me photos of his new baby, my niece I'd never met, and Dad watched Naomi across the table like she was the obstacle to his redemption arc. The conversation danced around the real issue until Ryan finally said, "We just want you home for Thanksgiving. Both of you." The invitation hung there, poisoned by everything unsaid. Naomi's hand found mine under the table again, steady as always. But I could feel the fracture widening. Every smile from them cost me a piece of the truth I'd fought to own. And I wondered how many more pieces I could afford to lose before there was nothing left of the woman who had earned that trophy. The flight back to Seattle felt like a pressure cooker. My family had booked seats in the same row, turning a 5-hour trip into an interrogation disguised as small talk. Mom kept steering toward catching up, asking about Naomi's art shows in a voice that sounded interested but landed like pity. Dad read the in-flight magazine too intently, while Ryan scrolled his phone, occasionally showing me baby pictures that twisted the knife deeper. Naomi sat beside me, earbuds in, sketching quietly, but I caught the tension in her shoulders. She had canceled 2 client meetings to be here. And I knew the gallery owner in Portland was getting impatient. Your dreams matter too. I had told her before we left, but the words felt hollow against the wall of expectation my family had rebuilt overnight. Landing in Seattle brought no relief. The next morning at EcoInnovate's office, the award buzz still hummed through the team, but my inbox was already poisoned. An email from our biggest distributor waited. Congratulations on the honor, Cassidy. However, recent media coverage of your personal life has raised concerns with conservative retailers. We may need to revisit terms. Attached was a screenshot of a tabloid photo from the ceremony, Naomi and me holding hands backstage. The message was clear. Success was fine, but visibility came with a price. I slammed my laptop shut, pulse roaring. This was the same prejudice that had cost me 3 major contracts last year, the kind that made me question every decision that had led me here. Naomi called during lunch, her voice soft over the line. Come home early. I'll make your favorite pasta. But home now carried new weight. My family's texts lighting up my phone with invitations and subtle suggestions that maybe it's time to think about balance. That evening we sat on our balcony overlooking the Sound, wine glasses in hand. Naomi leaned against me, her hair smelling like citrus and rain. They're not going to stop, she said quietly. The money, the visits, the guilt trips. It's all conditional. I knew she was right. 3 years ago I had chosen her over them, but now the choice felt like standing at a cliff edge with both sides pulling. A memory surfaced, our first anniversary, when I had proposed we move in officially. Naomi had laughed through happy tears and said, "Only if you promise we never let anyone make us smaller." I had promised. Yet here I was, measuring that promise against my niece's face in Ryan's photos, and the distributor threat that could tank quarterly revenue. The moral line blurred. Was protecting our life together selfish if it meant employees losing jobs? Was letting my family back in betrayal if it meant hiding pieces of us? The confrontation escalated 2 days later when Dad called. We wired the investment seed money. No repayment needed, just come for Thanksgiving. The amount was enough to cover the distributor shortfall. Naomi listened from the couch, eyes steady but sad. I hung up without answering, chest tight with the weight of every sacrifice we had made. That night I lay awake while she slept, replaying the award stage, my family's faces, the emails. The price of staying true was clear. Lost contracts, lost family. The price of compromise was murkier, Naomi's trust, my own reflection. By dawn I knew the next conversation would force the hardest decision yet, and whatever I chose, someone I loved would pay. Thanksgiving arrived like a storm I couldn't outrun. We flew to Texas at my family's insistence, the investment money already sitting in our accounts like a silent contract. Naomi packed her sketchbook, but left her usual optimism at home. Her jaw stayed tight the entire flight. At my parents' house, the same brick colonial where I had once hidden prom dresses and first crushes, the welcome mat felt like a minefield. Mom hugged us both too hard. Dad shook my hand formally, eyes flicking to Naomi's suitcase like it was evidence. Ryan's wife hovered with the baby, cooing about Aunt Cassidy, in a voice that tried too hard. The dining table groaned with turkey and sides, but the conversation circled landmines. Halfway through pie, Dad cleared his throat. The money's there because we believe in you, Cassidy. But we also believe you can have it all: family, success, a normal life. The word normal landed like a slap. Naomi set her fork down carefully. Mr. Thompson, Cassidy's life with me is normal. It's just not yours. Mom's eyes filled. We only want what's best. Think of the company, the baby, future. I felt the room shrink, every eye on me waiting for the verdict. Inside, the old guilt roared back. The same guilt that had kept me awake during the lean years when Naomi worked double shifts, so I could pitch investors. I had repaid her with loyalty, but now loyalty meant standing against the people who had taught me to ride a bike and say grace. Later in the guest room, Naomi and I argued in whispers. They're using the money to buy you back, she said, voice cracking for the first time in years. If you take their version of family, you'll lose pieces of us every holiday. I wanted to argue, but the distributor had already called again. Happy with the family reconciliation headlines, ready to sign if I kept personal matters private. The choice crystallized. Accept their terms and save the company, or walk away and risk everything we had built together. Naomi's eyes held mine, steady and heartbroken. I love you enough to let you choose, Cassidy, but I won't shrink to fit their picture. Sleep never came. I lay there listening to her breathing, weighing love against legacy, truth against survival. The next morning Dad cornered me in the garage while Naomi helped Mom with dishes. She's a sweet girl, but this phase, you can move past it. Bring her around less. Focus on the business. The offer was explicit now: money, approval, future. If I dimmed the light on us. I walked out without answering, heart splitting down the middle. Back inside, Naomi waited by the car, suitcase already loaded. Whatever you decide, we leave together, she said. But as we pulled away from the curb, my family's silhouettes in the doorway, I felt the fracture deepen into something permanent. The drive to the airport stretched silent, each mile another question I couldn't answer yet. By the time we boarded, I knew the real test was just beginning. Back in Seattle, the snow started early, blanketing our apartment in quiet that felt heavier than any argument. The distributor signed the new contract, citing family stability as the reason, and revenue projections climbed. But Naomi's sketches sat unfinished on the table, her gallery calls unanswered. I had taken the money, attended one more family Zoom, smiled through their careful questions about future plans. Each concession chipped away at the woman who had stood on that New York stage. Naomi never said, "I told you so." Instead, she cooked, listened, held me when the guilt hit at 3 a.m. But her eyes carried a new distance, the kind that whispered she was preparing for the day I chose them completely. The breaking point came on a gray December afternoon. Ryan called from Texas. "Dad's sick. Nothing serious, but he keeps asking for you. Come home for Christmas. Just you first, then bring Naomi if you want." The trap snapped shut. I hung up and found Naomi in the studio, charcoal on her fingers. "They want me alone," I said. She nodded once, slow. "Then go. But if you come back changed, don't expect me to pretend." The words carved deeper than any family rejection. That night I packed a small bag, booked the flight, and sat on the edge of the bed while Naomi slept. Every memory played. Her laugh the first time we kissed, her hand steadying mine during investor pitches, the way she had chosen me when the world hadn't. Leaving now felt like betrayal. Yet staying meant watching the company I had bled for crumble under the weight of my stubbornness. I went. Christmas at home was polite torture. Dad looked thinner, but his eyes still measured me. Mom cried when I walked in alone. They didn't push, but the absence of Naomi spoke louder than words. On the third night, Dad pulled me aside. "We can make this work, Cassidy. The company, the family, everything, if you just give it time." I looked at him and saw the man who had once taught me to code my first website, now offering conditional love like a business deal. The awakening hit like the spotlight on that stage. I had spent 3 years proving I could succeed without them, only to let their approval become the new cage. I booked the red-eye home that night. Naomi met me at the airport, coat pulled tight against the cold. We didn't speak until we reached the apartment. Then she turned, eyes clear. "Did you choose?" I pulled her close, the trophy still gleaming on the shelf behind us. "I chose us. Every time." The relief in her smile was worth every lost contract, every silent holiday. But as we stood together watching the snow fall, I knew the fractures would take years to heal. If they ever did. My family texted the next morning. "We love you. Doors always open." I stared at the words, heart heavy with the price we had all paid. Was it right for Cassidy to walk away from her family's conditional love to protect the life she built with Naomi? Or should she have compromised for the sake of reconciliation and the company she fought so hard to save?